Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to Black Sheep Knives. We're gonna review the Kershaw NORAD today. So it's a D2 tool steel. These are stainless steel scales with a carbon fiber inlay on both sides. It's got a reversible ambidextrous pocket clip. I just recently added this to my EDC. I decided to stock these as well, and I thought, why don't I do a review on them? I don't know, I like to be overly critical of knives, not because I'm an asshole, but just because. So I feel like all knives in the industry, have pluses and minuses, pros and cons. There are knives that definitely have more pros than cons, but anyway, I do like this knife. It's in my personal collection, and I do sell this knife. So we'll get started. All right, so this knife, first off, retails for $118. I don't know if it's like what the pricing is on like Blade HQ or any other site that you can buy this knife. To be honest with you, I haven't looked at the prices, even Amazon for that matter. I do know that this knife is, I believe, currently discontinued. So you could probably get a killer deal on it. We'll start with my gripes first, my complaints. Okay, so first and foremost, I think that they could have been a little more generous with the flipper tab. I know I went on their site and I read the general like design perspective for the knife, the description, and they wanted to keep the flipper tab as like a low profile with the rest of the knife, which I understand. From designing a knife, I'm designing a knife myself, and it's the aesthetics that you try to want to maintain while also making it what do you call it? Sorry, this is my anodizing station that I'm recording this video, so there's some stuff, there's tape and stuff around. Anyway, when you're designing a knife, you want to stick to form, but you also want it to function correctly. But you want to stick to the design as much as possible and make it aesthetically pleasing. So and I remember reading that that's what they wanted to do. They wanted to make the flipper tab disappear when the knife rotates into the locked position, which it does have the knife has a very, very nice appearance. It does disappear. It's got a great profile deployed. This is also why I decided to keep one when I bought inventory, because I like how the knife looks. It feels great. It's got good weight to it. The balance is decent for a knife that has steel scales and a steel backspacer. It's not the best balance in the world, but it's decent. But anyway, I don't want to get too sidetracked. As I was saying, flipper tab could be a little more generous. Or they could have figured out a way of like maybe milling out some of the front of the scale here to give you more flipper tab to work with, especially if you have bigger fingers. People with bigger fingers, it might be a little more difficult to deploy versus people with smaller fingers. That's one gripe. Another gripe, a bigger gripe of mine is this. So for me, I have a big hand. This also goes for people with big hands. When you deploy this knife, what happens is your fingers naturally rest on this frame lock. And most knives that I have that have a frame lock, I don't have this issue. I don't know if anybody else does. If you do, let me know in the comments. But whenever my fingers rest on the frame lock and I go to deploy the knife basically is stuck in detent. And it's almost impossible to deploy the knife because the frame lock is pressing against the knife. If you make sure your fingers are resting on the upper carbon fiber inlay and the upper part of the scale, knife deploys no problem. I'll show you. So naturally, my fingers want to sit here. But trying to deploy the knife is next to impossible because the frame lock is pressing against the knife. But if you move your fingers, if you shift your fingers, there, knife deploys no problem. I will say there's kind of a way to mitigate it, but for someone who's not really a knife person, I feel like this wouldn't be super intuitive, but you can Spidey flick this, because they have this really nice fuller area. It's a very generous groove. Your finger fits in it quite well. So you can Spidey flick this, and the bearing that they put in it, I don't know if it's a Kershaw proprietary bearing. Again, I read it in the description for the knife on the site. I think it's called their PVT ball bearing. Really smooth action. So the knife, when obviously the lock bar isn't getting in the way, it deploys fantastic. But that's my biggest gripe, honestly, is the lock bar. It just impedes the knife from basically deploying coming out of detent. And I think it's just because your fingers rest here naturally, and I don't know if they could have done anything to mitigate this issue. Honestly, trying to think of it off the top of my head while I'm recording this. I'm trying to look at both sides of the knife to see if the scales match. I really don't know. Maybe in some way, shape, or form, but I've never had this issue with a frame lock before. Aside from the flipper tab issue and the deployment with the frame lock where my fingers rest, other than that, I think this knife is fantastic. I really love it. I love the way the knife looks. I love the way the knife feels in my hand. They give you, a nice, it's not overly generous jimping here. This could have, definitely gone up a little further. I feel like that's maybe another maybe slight negative. I wouldn't call it like a big negative, but there definitely could have been a little more jimping here. But just because this is, this really kind of sick spear point blade. I love the blade shape. Definitely could have been more jimping, so you could choke up on the blade a bit more, get more purchase there. But other than that, I think this is an awesome knife. I'm not really sure why they discontinued it. I mean, I know some manufacturers do that just to, kind of go on to other designs, make room for newer models, that kind of thing, which I understand. It feels premium. It feels like a good knife. I don't know if 118 is a price I would have priced this knife at for the materials it uses, if I'm honest. For D2 blade steel and stainless steel scales with the carbon inlay, I would say the carbon inlay and stainless steel scales, the backspacer maybe makes up for it. But I feel like the D2 blade steel, I don't know. Maybe Kershaw has really good heat treat on their D2. Maybe their D2 is just out of this world. I'm not super familiar with, Kershaw's blade steel, what their heat treat is. I don't know what their reputation is with their general blade steel and blade treatment. So maybe it is justified. I don't know. I know Medford, for example, uses a D2 in a lot of their knives, but their D2 is out of this world. So, obviously you're paying for a premium product, and Medford is all manufactured in country, in-house. So that's the other reason, the expenses there, where, Kershaw is designed in the US, but I'm pretty sure most of the components are manufactured in China. I could be wrong. Feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. I like Kershaw as a brand. I have a bunch of their knives. I think this is probably my favorite that I have. I definitely have as far as a general opinion about their designs, I feel like a lot of their designs are a little outdated. This is definitely this is probably one of my favorite knives so far. I don't have an Iridium. I don't have a Bel Air. Those are their really the more popular, common run of the mill knives that people really like. You know, the Bel Air is sort of the Bel Air and the Iridium are sort of like the budget bug outs, so to speak, in the knife world. But I don't have them, so I couldn't really tell you. In the future, I will, I'm sure. But I think that this is a great knife. I think if you can get this knife at a discount, wherever, if you can find it at a discount wherever, it's totally worth it. I don't honestly think it's worth $120. That's just my opinion, and it's no disrespect to Kershaw or their, the materials, but it's more so just the materials that they use. $120 is just a lot of money for what you're asking D2 and stainless steel. Whereas like if you go to another brand, I mean, for you go to like Kaiser or like QSP or insert another brand, like you're getting like Nitro V blade steel, which I know Nitro V is it's a better blade steel, but it's also a worse blade steel as far as toughness and not necessarily edge retention, but general toughness compared to D2. But I don't know. I'm sort of hung up on that whole thing. Like it's kind of D2 is it's such a reliable blade steel, but it's also so inexpensive. But I also know that if it's done right, it can be an absolute monster of a blade steel. So I don't know. I think that's my biggest hang up. Out of all this, the price point. Yeah. Overall, I think the knife is fantastic. Like I said, if you can get your hands on one, I highly recommend it. I really enjoy this knife so far. Been carrying it for a few days. Yeah, that's. I wish they had more colorways, honestly. I think this would have looked really cool, especially with the carbon inlay. If there was, I don't know, like stonewash, maybe like a nice dark stonewash in the carbon. I know maybe that would have contrasted poorly against the carbon, or even if they did like a titanium would have been really nice. Titanium frame lock, maybe titanium blue wash, or just titanium bronze with the inlay. Ooh, that would have been so nice. The contrast would have been spectacular. Yeah, that's my opinion about it. I think overall, like I said, I think it's a great knife. A couple little gripes. I definitely have more knives in my collection. I have a couple knives in my collection that I have some pretty big gripes on that are like, whoa. But this knife, yeah. So if you're in the market for a knife, you're looking for something that's like I think this is a good beat on knife. Like if you work in like construction, or you're just, you need a knife for everyday hardcore tasks, and you're not a big knife guy, or you're just looking for something that's like a budget knife, and you don't want to, you're going to beat the shit out of the knife. This is probably the knife for you, honestly. Quality, I mean, pretty quality materials. Stainless steel, takes a goddamn beating. And then D2 blade steel is, D2, it's tool steel. I mean, you can't really go wrong with tool steel. So, yeah. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I know it's kind of long, but I just wanted to get it all out there. So, yeah. If you enjoyed it, leave a thumbs up on the video or comment. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one. Have a great day. Take care of yourself. Eat some good food. Stay hydrated. Later.